You think you can just take what's mine?
Everyone will think it was an accident.
Tonight, we are opening files related to revenge. These 8 accounts have been cross-referenced with police reports, court transcripts, and the first-hand testimony of the few who survived. They detail a terrifying truth, that the most monstrous acts often begin with the most mundane emotions. Spite, jealousy, a simple, petty argument. What you are about to hear is a presentation of the facts as we have found them. Before we begin, ensure you are subscribed to the Nightmare Log and have notifications activated. What we uncover here is a deep and disturbing look into the human capacity for vengeance, and you won't want to miss what we discover next. Our first case, file number NML 817, entitled The Borrowed Lawnmower. The date was July 14th, 2018. The location, a quiet suburban cul-de-sac in Cedar Springs. The subject of our file is David Miller, a 42-year-old accountant. His neighbor, Rob Shanahan, was a 45-year-old sales manager. They were not friends, but they were friendly. They would wave from their driveways, make small talk about the weather. David was known for his meticulous nature, his perfectly manicured lawn, and his prized possession, a brand new, self-propelled Honda lawnmower. On the morning of Saturday, July 21st, Rob knocked on David's door. He apologized, explaining his own mower had just broken down. He had family coming over for a barbecue that afternoon and was in a bind. Could he possibly borrow the Honda? He promised to have it back, cleaned, and with a full tank of gas, within 2 hours. Reluctantly, David agreed. The 2 hours passed, then 3, then 4. David's lawn remained uncut. He saw Rob laughing with his family in the backyard, the smell of grilled meat wafting over the fence. David rationalized it. The man was hosting a party. He was busy. He'd return it later. By 8 p.m., the party was over. David saw Rob put his own grill away in the garage. The lawnmower was not returned. David felt a simmering irritation. This was a simple agreement, a matter of respect. At 10 p.m., David went to bed, his mind fixated on the broken promise. The next morning, Sunday, the mower was still on Rob's side of the property line, left out on the grass overnight. A light dew covered it. David's irritation turned to anger. He marched over and retrieved it himself. He found the grass catcher full of clippings and the gas tank nearly empty. That afternoon, David confronted Rob. Rob was dismissive. He said he'd been tired after the party and forgot. He laughed it off, calling David high-strung and suggesting he needed to relax. This was the spark. The clinical, orderly part of David's mind shut down. That night, David didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table, listening to the hum of his refrigerator, and made a plan. He didn't feel rage. He felt a cold, precise sense of justice. The following evening, David siphoned the remaining gas from the mower's tank into a red plastic canister. He then went into his own garage and retrieved a container of gasoline he kept for emergencies. He mixed the two together. He waited until 2 a.m. when the neighborhood was pitch black and silent. He calmly walked over to Rob's attached garage. He did not break in. Rob had once mentioned he often forgot to lock the side door to the garage during the summer. It was unlocked. David entered. He slowly, methodically, poured the mixture of gasoline over Rob's car, his stored holiday decorations, his workbench. He poured a trail leading back to the door. He lit a match. The official fire department report concluded the blaze was caused by an electrical short in the garage's outdated wiring. Rob Shanahan, his wife, and his 2 children died from smoke inhalation. The investigation noted the presence of accelerants, but attributed them to cans of paint thinner and gasoline for the lawn equipment stored in the garage. The case was ruled a tragic accident. The official report lists the cause of the fire as accidental. The nightmare log, after reviewing David Miller's personal journal, which was never entered into evidence, has classified it as a premeditated act of vengeance. David Miller moved to a new state 6 months later. He cited the painful memories associated with the neighborhood. He took his Honda lawnmower with him. But a borrowed tool is not the only thing that can be taken. Our next case involves something far more personal, and the revenge for its loss far more cruel. Story 2. Case File NML 923. The setting is a small-town diner in Maple Creek, known for its friendly atmosphere and homestyle cooking. Lydia's Luncheonette was a local institution run for 30 years by a woman named Lydia Croft. Her head waitress and protege was a young woman named Chloe Benson, aged 24. Chloe was ambitious and saw the diner's potential. She had worked there for 5 years and had become Lydia's right hand. Lydia trusted her implicitly. Every year, Maple Creek held a fall festival, and the main event was the apple pie baking contest. Lydia had won it for 15 consecutive years. Her secret was her crust recipe, a family heirloom she kept locked in a small safe in her office. 1 week before the festival, Lydia fell ill with a bad flu. She left Chloe in charge of the diner. During this time, Chloe used the opportunity to find the safe's combination, which Lydia had foolishly written on a sticky note tucked under her desk blotter. Chloe copied the recipe. The day of the festival arrived. Lydia, still weak, entered her famous pie. So did Chloe for the first time. The judges were stunned. The two pies were identical in taste and texture. Unable to decide, they declared a tie. Lydia was confused, then suspicious. She confronted Chloe in front of the entire town green. Chloe laughed, claiming it was a coincidence, that she had simply developed a similar recipe through trial and error. She accused Lydia of being a jealous old woman who couldn't stand competition. The public humiliation was absolute. Lydia's reputation, built over decades, was shattered in an afternoon. Lydia's anger was not a fire, but a deep freeze. She said nothing. She simply went back to work. She watched Chloe parlay her victory into a loan from the bank to open her own bakery, Chloe's Confections, right down the street. Lydia waited. Opening day for the bakery was a huge success. The town, still buzzing from the drama, flocked to it. Lydia did not go. That night, after her diner was closed and cleaned, Lydia went into her basement. She retrieved a container of a powerful, odorless, and tasteless industrial cleaning solvent she used to degrease the kitchen vents. She had always been meticulous about safety, wearing thick gloves and a mask when handling it. She filled a small spray bottle. The next morning, before the sun was up, she went to the back alley behind Chloe's new bakery. She knew the delivery schedule. The dairy truck had just dropped off its order, gallons of fresh milk and cream, left by the back door for the baker to bring in. Lydia quickly, efficiently, sprayed the potent chemical onto the foil seals of every container of milk and cream. Chloe used the tainted dairy to make the whipped cream and custard for her pastries. 23 people were hospitalized with severe poisoning. A 3-year-old girl, Olivia Peterson, suffered permanent kidney damage. The health department investigation traced the contaminant back to the dairy supplier initially, but a sharp-eyed investigator noted the chemical was not used at the dairy plant. but was a specialty cleaner used in commercial kitchens. The investigation turned to local businesses. They found the same chemical solvent in Lydia's basement. She was arrested. The official report states Lydia Croft acted alone in a malicious act of food tampering. She is currently serving a life sentence. The nightmare log, however, has a secondary file on Chloe Benson. Her bakery never reopened. She was shunned by the town she sought to conquer. She was eventually sued into bankruptcy by the victims' families. The verdict in our log is that both women achieved their revenge. Lydia destroyed Chloe's dream, and Chloe, through her initial theft, destroyed Lydia's entire life. Petty grievances are not confined to neighborhoods or small towns. They can fester anywhere, even in places of supposed camaraderie. Our next case file takes us into the world of organized sports, where a battle for a title ended not with a trophy, but with a body bag. Case file NML 711. The setting was the Oakwood Men's Adult Softball League. For 10 years, the league commissioner was a man named Mark Davies, a 38-year-old insurance adjuster. He lived for the league. It was his entire social identity. His team, the Oakwood Sluggers, had won the championship for 3 years running. The challenge to his dynasty came from a new team sponsored by a local microbrewery, led by a charismatic 25-year-old named Jason Cole. Jason was everything Mark wasn't: naturally athletic, well-liked, and undeniably talented. During the final playoff game to decide who would face the Sluggers in the championship, a controversial call was made. Jason, playing shortstop, made an incredible diving catch. The umpire, an older man named Phil who had been in the league for decades, called the runner out. Mark, who was acting as the league representative that night, was watching from the stands. He overruled the call from the sidelines, claiming Jason had trapped the ball. He used his authority as commissioner to eject Jason's player from the game. Jason's team lost by 1 run. After the game, Jason confronted Mark, calling him a washed-up loser who had to cheat to feel important. The other players heard it. Mark's authority was publicly challenged and mocked. Mark's anger was quiet and administrative. The following season, he used his power to reassign the best players from Jason's team to other, weaker teams, citing league parity rules. He scheduled Jason's games for the worst time slots. He levied small, petty fines against Jason's team for minor uniform infractions. Jason responded by rallying his team. They practiced harder. They started winning despite Mark's interference. They made it to the championship game against Mark's Sluggers. The championship game was tied in the final inning. Jason was on third base. The next batter hit a sharp line drive directly at Mark, who was playing first base. It was an easy catch for the final out, but the ball hit the webbing of Mark's glove and popped out. The runner scored. Jason's team won. As Jason and his team erupted in celebration, Mark stood frozen, the ball at his feet. He heard Jason's laughter above the cheers. That night, at the league's end-of-season party at a local bar, Mark sat in the corner, nursing a beer, watching Jason hold court, the championship trophy on the table beside him. Mark left early. He went to his car, but he didn't drive away. He sat in the dark parking lot for an hour. Then he reached into his glove compartment. He kept a small, knuckle-style brass knuckle weapon there, a gift from a friend he'd always thought was silly. He slipped it into his pocket and walked back into the bar. The official police report states that Jason Cole was found in the bar's restroom after closing time. He had been severely beaten about the head and face. He died en route to the hospital. There were no witnesses. The security camera in the hallway outside the restroom had been accidentally unplugged earlier that evening by a person unknown. The murder weapon was never found. The official report lists the case as an unsolved homicide. The nightmare log, however, has a statement from the bartender who served Mark that night. He stated that Mark's knuckles were clean when he left the bar, but noticeably red and swollen when he returned an hour later to, as Mark claimed, look for his lost wallet. The case remains open. Mark Davies still runs the Oakwood Men's Adult Softball League. A moment of silence is held for Jason Cole before every championship game. The desire for recognition can be a powerful motivator, but when that recognition is stolen, the response can be creative. Our next case moves from the baseball diamond to the office cubicle, where a stolen idea became a death sentence. Case file NML 842. Lena Petrova was a 29-year-old junior analyst at a large, competitive marketing firm. She was sharp, innovative, and desperately wanted a promotion. Her direct supervisor was a man named Ben Carter, a 45-year-old mid-level manager who was widely known for taking credit for his subordinates' ideas. For months, Lena had been developing a comprehensive campaign for a major new client. She had stayed late, worked weekends, and built a detailed, groundbreaking PowerPoint presentation. The day before the big pitch to the client, Lena emailed her completed presentation to Ben for a final review. He thanked her and told her to take the afternoon off. She'd earned it. The next morning, Lena arrived early to set up the conference room. Ben was already there, running through his slides. They were her slides, her ideas, her research, her designs. He had simply copied the file and replaced her name on the title slide with his own. When she confronted him, he was calm. He said, "You work for me. What you produce is mine. That's how corporate life works, kid. If you want credit, be in my chair." He then told her to go get coffee for the clients. Lena was humiliated. She was forced to sit silently in the meeting while Ben presented her work. The clients loved it. They praised him for his genius. Ben received a hefty bonus and a formal commendation from the company's CEO. Lena received nothing. Her resentment didn't boil. It crystallized into something cold and hard. She began watching Ben with a detached, clinical interest. She learned his routines. He was a creature of habit. Every day at 3:00 p.m. exactly, he would go to the office kitchen and make himself a single cup of very specific, expensive green tea from a personal tin he kept in the cabinet. Lena knew about the tea because she had bought it for him as a birthday gift from the team the previous year. She waited 2 weeks. She wanted it to seem random, disconnected from the presentation. One Saturday, she came into the empty office. She used a key card she'd forgotten to return months prior. She went to the kitchen, put on gloves, and opened Ben's tin of tea. She had done her research. She had acquired a small amount of a rare, slow-acting industrial chemical used in photo development. It was odorless, tasteless, and cumulative. It would take weeks of daily exposure to take effect. She mixed the fine white powder thoroughly into the loose-leaf tea. She closed the tin, wiped it clean, and left. 3 weeks later, Ben Carter didn't show up for work. A wellness check was performed. He was found dead in his apartment. The initial autopsy was inconclusive. It was only after a toxicology screen was ordered, a screen that took weeks to process, that the chemical was found in lethal quantities in his system. The official investigation focused on his home, but found no source of the poison there. The case was eventually closed. listed as accidental poisoning from an unknown source, perhaps a contaminated supplement. The official report lists the death as a tragic accident. The nightmare log has classified it as a calculated act of murder. Lena Petrova was promoted into Ben's position a month after his death. She is considered a rising star at the firm. The company kitchen was renovated 6 months later. The old tea tins in the cabinet were thrown away. The tools of revenge are often as mundane as the grievances that inspire them. A lawnmower, a recipe, a baseball. Our next case, however, involves a tool of a different nature, silence, and the revenge for breaking it was anything but quiet. Case file NML 559. The subjects of this file are 2 former best friends, Mia Jennings and Sarah Littman, both 27 years old. They had been inseparable since college, sharing an apartment, vacations, and every detail of their lives. That changed when Mia began dating Sarah's older brother, Leo. The relationship became serious quickly. Sarah felt replaced and shut out. The friendship soured into a cold war of passive-aggressive notes and silent treatments within their shared home. The final blow came when Mia accidentally backed her car into Sarah's parked vehicle in their apartment's tight parking garage. The damage was minor, a scratched bumper and a cracked taillight. Mia, panicked and knowing their fragile relationship, didn't leave a note. She decided she would tell Sarah in person, hoping to soften the blow. But Sarah discovered the damage first. She immediately assumed the worst, that Mia had hit her car and fled, disrespecting her and their shared history completely. She didn't confront Mia. Instead, she called the police and reported the incident as a hit and run. She gave them Mia's license plate number, which she knew by heart. Mia was served with a citation for leaving the scene of an accident. Her insurance rates skyrocketed. The financial strain was significant, but the betrayal was absolute. She knew it was Sarah. The 2 women now lived in the same apartment, moving around each other like ghosts, not speaking a word. Mia's anger was a cold, hard stone in her stomach. She watched Sarah's routines. She knew Sarah left for her morning jog every day at 6:30 a.m., always taking the same route through the quiet, sleeping neighborhood. Mia began to plan. It wasn't about rage, it was about balance. An eye for an eye, a car for a car. She spent a week practicing. Every night at 3 a.m., when the world was asleep, she would drive her car to a deserted industrial park. She practiced quick, sharp turns. She practiced accelerating out of a side street. She wanted it to look like an accident. A tragic, horrible accident. On a foggy Tuesday morning, Mia was parked on a side street, her headlights off, engine running. She saw the flicker of Sarah's reflective running jacket under the dim street light. She waited. As Sarah entered the intersection, right on schedule, Mia hit the gas. She didn't swerve at the last second. She didn't brake. The impact was a sickening, definitive thud. The official police report concluded that Mia Jennings, on her way to an early shift, failed to see the jogger in the heavy morning fog. It was ruled a tragic accident. Mia gave a tearful, shaken statement to the police about the horror of the moment, the sudden appearance of the figure in the gloom. She was not charged. A small memorial with flowers and running shoes was placed at the intersection. The official report lists Sarah Littman's death as a vehicular accident. The nightmare log, after a review of Mia's internet search history, which included queries about low-visibility accident liability and vehicular man-sentence sentencing by state, has classified it as a premeditated homicide. Mia and Leo moved out of the apartment they had shared with Sarah. They are still together. Mia no longer drives the car that struck Sarah. She sold it for parts. Sometimes, the thing that is stolen is not an object or an idea, but a future. And the revenge for that theft is not taken against the thief, but against the very possibility of their happiness. Case file NML 901, The Ruined Wedding. Erica and Sophie were siblings, 2 years apart. Erica, the elder, had always been fiercely competitive. Their parents' favor was a prize to be won. This competition reached its peak when they both began dating. Erica's boyfriend, David, was kind and stable. Sophie's fiancé, Mark, was successful and charismatic. Erica seethed with a quiet jealousy. When Mark proposed to Sophie in an elaborate, public gesture, Erica's jealousy curdled into something darker. Sophie's wedding was planned to be a grand, expensive affair. 3 weeks before the wedding, Erica asked Sophie if she could help with the seating chart, claiming she wanted to feel more involved. Sophie, touched, gave her the password to the online wedding planning portal. This portal contained everything: the guest list, the vendor contacts, the meal choices, and the credit card information used to pay for it all. Later that night, from a private browser window, Erica logged in. One by one, she began canceling every single vendor: the florist, the band, the caterer, the venue booking. She used the Save credit card to pay the cancellation fees, ensuring the vendors wouldn't question it or call to confirm. She then changed the password to the account, locking Sophie out. The meltdown happened slowly over the next 48 hours. Emails and calls started flooding Sophie's phone. "We're sorry you've canceled. Your deposit has been refunded, minus the fee." Sophie was frantic, confused. She tried to log into the portal to see what was happening and couldn't. She called her mother in tears. The family was in chaos. Everyone assumed it was a horrific glitch in the website, a catastrophic system error. Erica played the role of the supportive, outraged sister perfectly. How could they do this? "It's a nightmare," she would say, shaking her head while secretly watching Sophie's world disintegrate. The wedding was, effectively, erased. With all the prime summer dates now taken by other couples, there was no way to rebook anything in time. The dream wedding was gone. The stress and public humiliation were too much for the relationship. Sophie and Mark began to fight constantly, blaming each other for the mishap, for the pressure, for the money lost. The wedding was called off. The engagement was broken. Erica had won. She had her parents' full attention again as they tried to console their heartbroken youngest daughter. But Erica's victory was not enough. She wanted to see the finality of it. She created a fake social media profile and began sending Sophie anonymous messages. "He never really loved you. Everyone is laughing at you. You're better off alone." Sophie, isolated and deeply depressed, was found by her mother 2 days later. She had taken an entire bottle of sleeping pills. She left no note. The official coroner's report ruled it a suicide brought on by severe depression. The family was devastated. At the funeral, Erica was the picture of grief, holding her parents up, making all the arrangements. The official report lists Sophie's death as a suicide. The nightmare log, after obtaining the IP logs from the wedding website and the fake social media account, has traced both actions directly to Erica's home computer. We have classified Sophie's death as a murder by proxy. Erica inherited her sister's portion of their grandparents' estate. She used some of the money to plan her own wedding to David the following year. It was a beautiful ceremony. The final two entries in this log demonstrate a terrifying evolution. The grievances grow smaller, the responses more disproportionate. We begin with a case where the battleground was a digital space, but the consequences were brutally, terminally physical. Case file NML 668. Tom Walters, a 58-year-old electrician, ran a small, one-man operation called Tom's Trusty Wiring. His business relied almost entirely on his 5-star average on a popular review website. His reputation was his livelihood. He was a man of immense pride, known for his gruff demeanor and his obsessive attention to his online ratings. Across town, a 22-year-old college student named Liam Park hired Tom to install a ceiling fan in his apartment. The job was completed in under an hour. Tom handed Liam a bill for $200, his standard rate for a basic install. Liam, who had expected to pay half that, was shocked. He paid, but he felt cheated. The following day, he left a detailed, one-star review on Tom's page. It read, "Competent work, but a complete ripoff. Charged me $200 for 45 minutes of work. Feels predatory. Would not recommend." To Liam, it was a warning to other students. To Tom, it was an act of war. That single review dropped his perfect 5.0 rating to a 4.9. He called Liam, his voice tight with controlled fury, and demanded he take it down. Liam refused. Tom's life began to unravel. The phone calls slowed to a trickle. The algorithm, once his friend, now buried his business. He became fixated on that single review. He would refresh the page dozens of times a day, watching the number of views on Liam's critique climb. He drafted long, rambling responses to the review but never posted them. He rationalized that this lazy, entitled kid had destroyed everything he'd built over 30 years over a few dollars. He obtained Liam's address from the work order. He began to drive by the apartment building after his now empty workdays were done. He watched Liam come and go with his friends, laughing, living his life, utterly unaware of the ruin he'd caused. Tom's plan was not born of a hot rage, but of a cold, calculated need for correction, to delete the problem at its source. One evening, he put on his work uniform, a branded shirt and jacket, and carried his toolbox into Liam's apartment building. He nodded at a neighbor in the hall, looking for all the world like a man there to do a job. He knocked on Liam's door. When Liam answered, confused, Tom simply pushed his way in. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He said, calmly, "You need to delete the review." When Liam, frightened, again refused and reached for his phone, Tom didn't hesitate. He picked up a heavy-duty voltage tester from his open toolbox, a solid metal object, and struck Liam once, hard, on the side of the head. Then he sat at Liam's computer, found the review page, and deleted the critique himself. He then wiped the keyboard and mouse clean, picked up his tool, and left, locking the door behind him. Liam's body was discovered by his roommate 2 days later. The official police investigation was initially baffled. There was no sign of forced entry, no robbery. The only lead was the deleted review, which a friend of Liam's mentioned to detectives. When police visited Tom's business, they found it closed. Tom was at home. He confessed immediately, calmly explaining his actions as a necessary measure to protect his business. He seemed almost relieved. The official report lists the death as a homicide during a breaking and entering. Tom Walters is currently awaiting trial. The Nightmare Log has classified this case as a digital to physical transference, where an online action prompted a real-world, lethal response. Tom's business profile remains online. His rating has been restored to a perfect 5.0 stars. And now, we come to the final case in this log. This file is perhaps the most chilling, as it illustrates how the most insignificant slight, left to fester in the wrong mind, can unleash a horror that consumes everything in its path. This is the story of a man who was asked to be quiet. Case file NML 010. Arthur Phelps was a 72-year-old retired machinist who lived alone in the downstairs unit of a duplex. He was a man of rigid routine, silence, and order. His upstairs neighbor was a young woman named Chloe, a 26-year-old music teacher who practiced her cello in the evenings. Arthur found the deep, resonant notes of the instrument to be an unbearable intrusion. He began his campaign of revenge with polite notes slipped under her door. Then, he graduated to pounding on his ceiling with a broom handle whenever she played. One Tuesday evening, Chloe had had enough. She went downstairs and knocked on Arthur's door. She was polite but firm. She explained that she had to practice, that her teaching depended on it, and that she kept her practicing within reasonable hours. She asked him, please, to stop the constant knocking, as it was more disruptive than her music. She was asking for tolerance. Arthur heard only a challenge. He stared at her, said nothing, and closed the door in her face. The insult was monumental. She had dared to confront him. She had dared to tell him what to do in his own home. Arthur's retaliation was silent and sinister. He began to study her routine with the intensity of a military tactician. He learned when she left for work, when she came home, when she went to the grocery store. He obtained a key to her apartment from a janitor's closet in the building's basement that was supposed to be locked, but never was. He would let himself in when she was gone. His actions were small, designed to make her doubt her sanity. He would move a single book on her shelf. He would unplug her alarm clock. He would shift the furniture in her living room a bare half-inch. He would leave her refrigerator door slightly ajar. He never took anything. He only moved things. The final act was one of absolute psychological domination. One night, as Chloe slept, Arthur used his key and entered her apartment. He did not wake her. He did not touch her. He went into her kitchen and took a single, sharp chef's knife from her block. He then went to her front door, which had a sturdy, old-fashioned deadbolt. From the inside, he used the knife to carefully, quietly, unscrew and remove the interior thumb turn of the deadbolt, leaving the mechanism engaged and the door permanently locked from the inside. He then left the same way he came in, through the back door, which he then locked behind him, sealing her inside. He took the knife and the thumb turn with him. The next morning, Chloe woke up late, her alarm clock having been unplugged. She tried to leave for work and found her front door wouldn't open. The deadbolt was stuck. The panic began to set in. She was trapped. She called her landlord, but he was out of town. She called a locksmith, who said they couldn't come until the afternoon. For hours, she was a prisoner in her own home. And then, the knocking started. A slow, steady, rhythmic knock, knock, knock on her front door. It was Arthur. He called through the door, his voice a parody of concern. "Everything all right in there, Chloe? You seem trapped." He did this every hour. He became the jailer and the only person who knew she was in her cell. When the locksmith finally arrived and freed her, Chloe was in a state of utter terror. She immediately packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. She never returned to the apartment. She broke her lease and moved to another city. The official report, based on her statement, noted a broken lock and a frightened tenant, but no crime had been committed. The landlord fixed the door and rented the unit to someone else. The official report lists no charges. The nightmare log has classified this as a psychological homicide. Arthur Phelps did not kill Chloe's body. He methodically and deliberately murdered her sense of safety, her peace of mind, and her home. He remains in his downstairs unit. The new tenant above him is a deaf, elderly man. Arthur finally has the silence he craved. Our archivists note that the case file for Arthur Phelps remains open. We believe he is not finished. These 8 cases from the nightmare log demonstrate a terrifying and consistent truth. The world is not threatened solely by monsters we can recognize. The most profound dangers are often born from the most mundane human emotions: pride, envy, spite, a borrowed lawnmower, a stolen recipe, a negative online review, a simple request for quiet. In each of these accounts, a line was crossed, not a line drawn by law, but a fundamental line within the human psyche. The subjects of these files believed a wrong had been committed against them, and in their minds, the scale of their response was justified. It was equivalent. It was fair. They did not see themselves as monsters. They saw themselves as instruments of balance, delivering a justice that the world had failed to provide. The horror is not in the grandeur of the evil, but in its pettiness. It is in the calm, clinical planning, the waiting, the use of everyday objects, a car, a computer, a container of tea, as weapons. These are not crimes of passion committed in a blinding rage. They are crimes of cold deliberation, where the victim's humanity was erased long before their life was taken. They were reduced to a problem that required a solution. Trust your instincts. If a situation feels disproportionately hostile, if a grievance seems to be festering into an obsession, remove yourself. Your safety is more valuable than being right. Check on your friends, your family, your neighbors. The most dangerous monsters are not the ones that hide in the shadows. They are the ones who smile at you from across the fence, who work in the cubicle next to you, who live in the apartment below. They are the ones who look just like us. If you have a case you believe belongs in the log, a story of a petty grievance that escalated into the unthinkable, describe it in the comments below. Your testimony could be the key to a future investigation. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. The archives are vast, and we have only just begun to explore the depths contained within. Stay vigilant. This has been a presentation from the Nightmare Log. Until next time, narrator, try to sleep.